Hello everyone, Evan&AudreyS here. Today I want to do something a little different in terms of movie reviewing. Typically I usually do a vlog review, video review, movie criticisms, or a podcast review hosted by my dogs Alpha, Beta, and Gamma, aka the Criticisms Dogs, which myself playing them. But today I'm going to be doing a podcast review hosted by myself. Today's subject being Black Panther Wakanda Forever. And apologies for the noise in the background. I couldn't find anywhere else to record, and my parents and family are working, and my dad is working on dinner for my family. So anyway, why am I so late to watching this movie? Well, basically, just to let you know, I haven't been a big up until, with the exception of Spider-Man No Way Home, I haven't been a big fan of the MCU lately, the Marvel Cinematic Universe, with what they're doing. I felt like Avengers Endgame was a pretty solid conclusion to everything that had been building up to it, and I didn't think this franchise needed to continue. I felt like it had a perfect, it landed the ship well perfectly with that. So, and I felt like Disney is just doing their usual milking things. And that's another thing. I tend to have a problem with what Disney's been doing. So, so I've, pre- pre- I've, the reason I skipped Black Panther Wakanda Forever in the theaters, despite how many times my family wanted to see it in the theater, was to vote with my wallet. Because unfortunately, I did end up seeing the bad MCU movie. Well, it wasn't terrible, but it also wasn't that good either. Uh, with Thor: Love and Thunder, Thor 4, which, yeah, that wasn't that great. But anyway, this review will contain spoilers, so if you haven't seen Black Panther Wakanda Forever, please leave now. Or if you want my overall grade, you can skip to the time code with the link in the description below. So the basic gist of this sequel to Black Panther, it happens after the events of Endgame, of course, and the elephant in the room, Chadwick Boseman died of colon cancer recently before this movie was able to get filmed, so they couldn't have Black Panther himself in it. But we'll get to that in a bit. The point is, their solution was T'Challa. He got sick, and his sister Shuri is desperately trying to cure him, but she fails. Soon, the Wakanda is facing their next threat, which is these ocean people led by their leader Namor, and they want to unite with Wakanda and basically take on the world. Not really rule it, but take on it. So sorry if I get the synopsis wrong, but Shuri has to not only deal with her grief with her brother, but try to embrace the new Black Panther herself and take on that responsibility. Will she succeed? So again, the elephant in the room is Chadwick Boseman's demise. I'm not a big Chadwick Boseman fan. I don't dislike him or anything, but I'm just not a fan of him. So call me a monster, but I'm I do understand. I totally get why people are sad over his death, but I did feel sad and I felt sympathy, but not empathy. Anyway, so I think the big problem with this movie is that I don't think Wakanda Forever does the best job of tributing Boseman, because I rarely felt any emotion when I was supposed to, with the exception of the very end, in the final scenes. So I think the film pretty much failed its most important job. If you thought they did a good job, then good for you. But I didn't feel it. Now, as for the main story with Shuri and her character arc, she's basically the main character now in place of T'Challa. She has this arc of like becoming like Killmonger, the bad guy from the first Black Panther, and trying to enact revenge on Killmonger his and Namor, because they're the ones who are ultimately responsible for T'Challa's death. But yeah, there I think there was some potential for Shuri's character arc, but the problem is that it was mostly microwave rather than well cooked. In other words, I the film kind of barely touches upon that arc and only does the kind of, it basically kind of does the bare minimum with it and just barely touches upon it. It's barely explored, that's the word. And I think there could have been more scenes of Shuri, acting this way and being a little aggressive and angry. And we should have had more time to develop that arc. I also felt like Namor as a villain, he lacked a lot of depth and originality in his motives. See, in the past, his civilization, they were originally his civilization. His people were used to be normal humans, but then the sea gave them some this new identity and life, and things were happy at first until his people were eventually put into slavery by Spanish people. I think some empire, Spanish Empire. Uh, so he decided to turn her bad, technically, and take revenge on these slavers and destroy her empire, their colonies. And he is referred to as, I think it was the god of the god with no morals. I think that's wrong. Comment below if I mistook that, but if I made a mistake. But anyways, so I get what the film was going for with Namor's backstory, but we've seen this kind of villainous backstory so many times before in the past, and nothing new or fresh is brought into it, besides the fact that Namor at first turns good by the end. And two, I unlike with Killmonger in the original Black Panther, which you could see where he was coming from, but you still rooted against him. He was still a bad guy at the end of the day. I think, call me a monster again, but I think Namor's was killing people for revenge is actually more justified here, because these are people enslaving other people, and he has every right to take out revenge on them and destroy them. They're pure evil. So a part of me kind of roots for him too much. Now I guess you're thinking I'm trashing this movie too much, Black Panther: Wakanda Forever, but trust me, there are things I do like. There are saving graces to it. First of all, the acting. The action sequences are much improved over the first movie, because the first movie, at least particularly the climax with Killmonger and Black Panther, had some CGI that was really fake and looked pretty campy, but not in a good way. This one has more refined CGI, and it's more well cooked. I think the action sequences might be the most well cooked thing about it. Anyway, Shuri also has this nightmare when she is given the Black Panther serum, where she confronts Killmonger on the Black Panther throne. Again, I do think Shuri's this kind of setup for a character arc should have been more well cooked, but this is still a pretty interesting scene to watch, and the acting really sells it here. Of course, the acting is top tier. I do agree with critics that Angela Bassett as Ramonda is incredible, and of course, the other standout performer being Letitia Wright as Shuri. I think she does a great job as Shuri, even more than the first movie, particularly since she has a much larger role here, the main character. Now, like a lot of recent Marvel movies, there is a young side character in this movie. Her name is Williams. She's a child prodigy in MIT who graduated from MIT and has built an Iron Man suit similar to Iron Man's, but surpasses it on lots of levels. I think she is a better kind of young side character than America Chavez from the movie Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, because unlike her, Riri does actually do stuff. She does have charisma, and she does actually help in the main story. She's not just in for the sake of it. She does stuff. Namor's army of ocean people also have really eerie, grim, unsettling musical themes to back up their menace. So, and those are the highlights of the musical score to me. So one more thing before I give my overall thoughts on Wakanda Forever. So my big problem with the MCU, besides me not thinking there may be much reason for it to keep going, is that this is my big problem with Thor: Love and Thunder. By the way, my comparison with it in Thor Ragnarok is kind of outdated, but a lot of these movies seem to be very the same, because the thing that really made the Infinity Saga phases 1 and through 3 work is that you could tell each kind of superhero movie apart in terms of tone. Phase 4, these newer movies, they seem very the same. They seem to be using very, very campy and over-the-top humor and action sequences and goofiness. And even Spider-Man No Way Home falls into this problem, as good as it was. And with Thor: Love and Thunder in particular, I do think it kind of, the humor does kind of seems to have gone out of control in some scenes and ruin the tension and weight and conflict and stakes. That's it. So now this movie, it does seem it's a good. Now this movie, it seems like it barely went through the MCU magic machine. Like it's a completely different movie. This to me is both a good thing and a bad thing. On the one hand, it does help to set it apart from the rest of this phase. But on the other hand, it does make it kind of boring, and I can imagine some fans of the MCU and casual people being turned off by it because of this. So, to sum up my thoughts, I think this movie, Black Panther: Wakanda Forever, is good. It's not that great, but good. I do think it failed at its most important thing to do, which was to pay tribute to the late Chadwick Boseman, who could have made this movie if he was still alive, but he's not. But I think now I'm gonna say something that could be taken as an insult. Sorry, that's my dog whining. But anyway, so basically, I actually think that Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker, as rubbish as it was, I think that one did a superior job with Carrie Fisher than this movie, because they showed. I think it's because they showed more of Carrie Fisher in what they had to work with, and she had a presence in the story. So yeah, that's kind of shocking to say the least. Now, even if putting that aside, I still think the original Black Panther did a superior job at making me feel the appropriate emotions at the appropriate times, unlike the sequel. I didn't love the first Black Panther, but at least it managed to do that. I did feel for T'Challa and his journey. Same thing with Killmonger at some points. Plus, speaking of Killmonger, Namor as a villain just can't live up to Killmonger in the first movie. Well, I know some people really love this movie, and all power to those that love it and think it did a great job with Black Panther. But personally, it's good, but not at No Way Home level of good of Phase 4. It really doesn't beat that. Overall, I give this movie a B+. So, the question is, have you seen Black Panther Wakanda Forever? If not, do you want to or not, and why? Feel free to let me know in the comments below. And if you like more of this kind of style, what do you think of it? And you don't want more of it, also let me know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this podcast review posted by myself, then feel free to like, subscribe, and or share. I'm Evan J. Sims, signing out. Peace!